Okay, sorry. There we go. Took me a minute. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear. All right. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Paul Genovese. I'm the post-secondary counselor here at Buffalo Grove High School. And
You're on mute now.
Sorry. Thank you. I will not touch the screen. I'm very happy that we are back in school. I'm happy to see your sons and daughters. It's a pleasure as compared to last year where we did everything remotely. I just felt tonight it'd be just a little bit safer to do this virtually, and hopefully we can end this virtual presentations fairly soon and have in-person events in the future. But in any event, welcome to Senior Parent Night. For those of you who just joined me, my name's Paul Genovese. I'm the post-secondary counselor here at Buffalo Grove High School. My role is to help your kids transition from Buffalo Grove High School to whatever choice they want to do after they graduate, whether it be a 2-year school, a 4-year school, trade school, tech school, military, whatever options they're choosing for after high school. Just to recap, last week, we met with your kids from Monday through Thursday. We met with them and we went over, it was called Senior Core, and we gave them information. We did a broad scope, a broad timeline of senior year and what you should be doing when. In addition, then, we also we talked to them about the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts, what you need to do, like how to request a transcript, how to log on to Common App, how to ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation, all the nitty gritty details. So we gave them a broad scope and a pinpoint information on how to be successful through the application process. Tonight, my goals here is we want, of course, your kids to feel comfortable going through this process. And we want you to help them through this, and the information, we want you to work as a family and work together. So this process doesn't have to be painful and stressful and screaming matches at home, but rather a collaborative environment where we can all work together to help your kids achieve what they want to achieve. So that's we met with them last week. We're meeting right now with you guys, and together we can help your kids be successful. Another tool is, it sounds very simple and elementary, but staying organized. You know, through this process, kids, if they're in a sport, if they're they have a part-time job and a club and activity, along with their homework and studying for tests, this is another thing that they have to do. It's certainly not impossible. It's very achievable. It's manageable as long as students stay organized. And if parents and guardians, if you can help your kids, help them stay organized, they'll see much more success. So that's, we're going to talk to you, and we're going to show you some information on our website on some tools on how to help your kids stay organized, and you can work together with them. As mentioned just earlier, we're going to talk to you as well about the senior year timeline, kind of what you should be doing when, so you can help guide them and you're in the know as well on this information, because it's a family decision. And then ultimately, the ultimate goal for tonight, for all of senior year, for your kids, is really help them find the right fit. We want kids to find a place that fits them the best, whether that be a very large public university or a small private liberal arts school, to a trade school, tech school, a hands-on school, culinary school, whatever the case may be. So your kids have a lot of choices. There's a lot of great choices out there, and together we can work to help narrow that down so your kids have some good choices once they graduate and they see great success after they graduate from Buffalo Grove High School. So that's the mission tonight. I'd like to introduce Kathleen Becker. Kathleen Becker is a college and career room assistant. She is actually managing the chat tonight and admitting people in. So we're working together. So thank you, Kathleen, for helping out. In regards to the chat, I'm going to be doing the seminar here. And if a question arises or something, you can certainly post it in the chat. I'm not saying we're going to get to it right tonight, but we're going to collect all the questions and we can answer the questions and put it out in an email in the very near future. On that note, I think all of you obviously received an email about this evening. And our intention is to send out an email to parents and to students every Thursday, highlighting upcoming information, college reps that are coming the following week, anything that you need to know to stay informed, anything that comes across my desk that's important for families to know about. We are going to send out a Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon email. So whenever you see in the subject line, BGHS College and Career Center, it will be, I promise you, it'll be maybe a 30-second read, 30-second to a minute read. And we told your kids this too. So it'll be emailed to parents, guardians, and to students. And that's how we'll help keep the lines of communication open. Before we get to the website, Senior Core, like I said last week, this is an add-on to when we met with your kids virtually last spring as during Junior Core. And so now we're just kind of going down the line. And as we go down the line, we're getting a little bit more and more specific. So now we're kind of getting down to a little bit more pinpoint time frame. And I'm going to show that to you on a chart, a timeline chart, and it'll become a little bit clearer in a second. We're going to then also talk to you parents. We're going to explain to you what we explain to the kids briefly about the how-to process, because that's their job. That's their job, is to apply to the colleges and send their transcripts and ask their teachers for letters of recommendation. So they know what their mission is. They know what they need to do. We're simply going to keep you informed on what they're supposed to do so you can have good conversation. With that, I am going to share my screen. And the point of this, I know for some parents who were here in spring for the junior, I kind of showed off the website. This website it kind of evolved, and it's more than just a website. It's a Google Sites. So we put this together, but we tried to house all post-high school planning information into one space, one place, to be used by faculty, by counselors, by students, and by families. So when in doubt, this really should be your first go-to place that houses a lot of good information, whatever choices your son or daughter is thinking. So that's kind of what we're going to start with. I'm not going to showcase it, but we're going to use it more like a PowerPoint, more like a slideshow, and kind of highlight information throughout the website. And then you can take this after tonight in the future, sit down with your son or daughter and use this as a tool, as a conversation piece to help navigate your family's post-high school planning. So without further ado, this is the main page. And really, it boils down to 4 different sections. I'm just going to go slow. But we break it down into, for students, what is your plan, which are post-high school options, what your choices are. We have a next section is starting your plan. What path will you take? So how to research and learn about the plan that you want to execute. Working your plan, which we talked about with seniors on the how-tos. And then I'm sure parents and guardians, you're interested in paying for your plan, how to pay for your plan. So these are the 4 sections. We tried to keep it as simple as possible, and it kind of grows with your son or daughter as they start off from freshman year through senior year, getting a little bit more specific. Before we go on, I want to highlight, here's my contact information. Here's Kathleen Becker's contact information. We're readily available to help out. So if you want to shoot us an email or give us a phone call, we can help you out. We stressed a lot to seniors last week when we met with them it's better to stop on in. I'd much prefer a student coming in to see me regularly every day with a question or 2 versus a student who has a question and then puts it on the side and another question. And then all of a sudden they get stressed out. They put everything on the shelf and then they don't come in for another month. We don't want time to pass. So please, we're open, we're ready to help your kids with whatever pathway they're thinking. Just under quick links, These are general quick links like Naviance. Your kids know what Naviance is. It is our college search engine, our search and college and career search tool. Schoology, Infinite Campus, calendars. We have job and volunteer. I just want to draw your attention to calendars real quick and kind of highlight this calendar we sent with or was included in the senior parent newsletter. And of course, we just talked about Senior Core. I just want to highlight a couple upcoming events during the month of September. We're meeting right now. Started today, we have college representatives. This was on hold last year during COVID, both during the fall and the spring, but we are open for business. So in that weekly email, we're going to be sending to you all the upcoming college rep visits here to Buffalo Grove. So what that is then, it's a person who works in the admissions office at colleges, and we have schools from all over the country that are coming to Buffalo Grove. We have probably about 90 some colleges that have RSVP'd that they are coming. And they come right here to the College Career Center and they sit down, and during these times, during the Block 3 lunch periods, and they want to talk with kids. So that opened up today, and we run through November 4th with college rep visits. So please encourage your kids. If you're looking at that thing and you see, University of Minnesota Twin Cities is coming in a couple weeks and that school is on your child's radar, make sure they make a point to come down and meet with that person. You'll get to talk to a person about that university. We do have a few colleges that are still virtual, but the vast majority are in person coming in. So that's one good thing. There are some college fairs. I know we didn't host a college fair last year for obvious reasons, but National Association for College Admission Counselors are hosting a wide variety of college fairs during September, October, and November. And this is the link, and you register and you can have access to a virtual college fair. This next event is September 21st. This is our District 214 Financial Aid Night. We have Mark Anderson, who is the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Lake Forest College. And he will talk to you, he will talk to senior parents and guardians in the perspective that 2 months from now or 7 weeks from that date, the FAFSA opens up. And he'll explain the how-tos and what you need to do, what tax information you need, what bank statements you need to have in front of you to fill out the FAFSA, and he'll give you a timeline of events as well for senior year and how financial aid works. So the more information you have on understanding the process, hopefully the simpler the process will be. And then I'm not going to go ad nauseum on all of them, but you can certainly look at all the upcoming events that we have, which is quite a bit, all the way through the end of the year for you and for your kids so they can make a good decision. The college-related quick links, this is all for kids. You can certainly take a look at this, but all this is information that we showed your kids last week to help them with the college application process. So if you have any questions on this, they can certainly fill you in as well. We have the college rep visit schedule. This is the same schedule that we're going to email you and your kids every week. And then just wanted to highlight the week of October 4th, we have an Illinois State College Week. We're going to have, Illinois has 12 public universities in the state, and we are having all 12 state universities represented at Buffalo Grove during the week of October 4th through the 8th. And that would be a great opportunity if you want to compare and contrast our variety of public schools. This is a good event to go, a good event for your kids to attend. So we're not going to talk about what your plan is as much as we did last year, but these are the kids' choices. And you, after tonight, you can click on each one of these links and learn a much more detailed information about four-year colleges, Harper Community, certificate, union, apprentice trade schools, and branches of the military. So that you can look at your leisure. What I would like to talk about is starting your plan, which is the beginning of senior year. If anything, this chart really sums up all the overview of junior and senior year. So starting with researching and visiting, we started talking to kids about researching and learning about schools and options and choices back in March. And that continues all the way through this month. This arrow certainly doesn't need to end in September. It can keep on growing and keep on going all the way through first semester. But a good chunk of it, we want to have students saying, yes, I'm going to a four-year school, and I'm thinking I visited a U of I. I'm thinking I enjoy a large public university, and then they can continue researching, but knowing the avenue that they're going down, knowing their pathway of type of school. Or if they're listing in the military, I'm looking between the Army and the Marines. They know their pathway. While this is occurring, standardized testing is another layer, another thing for college admissions. And in about 5-6 minutes, so we scroll down, I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about standardized testing, because the field, the world of standardized testing has drastically changed as a result of the pandemic and COVID. So we'll talk to you and give you all the information you need to know about standardized testing. My point with this arrow is that standardized testing started in April when we tested kids. They took the in-school SAT. And the season, the testing season, if you will, should be wrapping up mid to late October. And the reason why we say that is if schools do require a standardized test, and if a school has a deadline date of a November 1st or a November 15th, if a student took a standardized test in September, October, the chances of them getting their score and getting to the school by the deadline date gets slimmer. So we want kids, the test season is sort of wrapping up, and September, October, the latest, to take a test if they want to take it to see if they improve their score or whatnot. So that's kind of what I'm saying. The window of standardized testing is sort of ending by October. As you can see, the start of the school year was mid-August, and the yellow bar is completing your applications. So we are at the very beginning. So last week when we met with your kids, we mentioned that the clock has started to tick. And again, not to stress even families out, we are at the very, very beginning of the process. So as you can see, we are right here, early September. We have all the way through December for kids to fill out the application. So before we continue, the world of college admissions, we're taking a little slant towards 2-year and 4-year schools, and including trade and tech schools. But the world of admissions, it's a gray area. What's right for one school isn't right for another school. So it's not black and white. With that being said, we are strongly encouraging kids to start their applications and to finish their applications before they leave for winter break. If they get their applications in by Thanksgiving break, which is the end of November, even better. If they get their applications in by Halloween, which is the end of October, even better. If they get them in the next few weeks, that's outstanding. So this is just a general timeline. There's a lot of good reasons why you want to we're encouraging kids to get their applications in sooner rather than later, and we'll address that in a little bit. But this is the time frame. So if we could all work on helping kids get their apps in before winter break, we're in really good shape. Your kids will be in good shape for a lot of good reasons. Starting the financial aid process and scholarships. So financial aid, the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid, that application opens up October 1st. So that's why we have this here, and you can start the financial aid process and filling out the FAFSA form, which is an application from the government, and it's need-based money. It's based on assets and income, both of parents and or guardians and students. So it's irrelevant of grades or test scores or merit. It's simply need-based, and that opens up October 1st. Again, this application stays open all the way through June of next year. But if we can get the financial aid FAFSA application completed before winter break, that would be great. The chances of getting more money, the sooner you apply, your chances of getting more money earlier in the process increases if you get your app in sooner rather than later. The scholarship search process, a lot of times kids want to start doing this first, but we need to work on the applications. So our focus, our time, our energy, kids' missions right now is focusing in on completing applications. Once that is finished, then kids can start researching scholarships. And in fact, to be honest, the majority of scholarships don't become available until December of this year, all the way through May of next year. And we're going to talk about strategies for that. One other thing I want to mention too is that like I said, we met with your kids last week. At the end of September, we're going to have a senior check-in with your kids. So we are going to review what we just talked about, review this timeline. We are then going to introduce to talk to them about financial aid and scholarships. And we're simply checking in to see how they're doing. They'll have an opportunity to talk one-on-one with their counselor. Hopefully we're going to be running some breakout sessions. So it's just kind of a, hey, how you doing? How are things going? A friendly kick in the rear end if maybe they haven't started it. And that'll be coming up at the end of this month. And like I said, we'll be talking about financial aid and scholarships with your kids in detail then. A final decision, just so you know, parents and guardians, if a student applies to schools now, say next week, and they get accepted, they apply to 7 schools, they get accepted to 5 out of their 7 schools, they have 5 offers of admission available to them. So on the kitchen table, you can lay out those 5 offers of admission, and your son or daughter has a spot reserved at those 5 schools for sure until May 1st. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you find out, and you have a spot reserved for you. May 1st, this date, this magical date, is the universal reply date. And then colleges are saying, student, by the time May 1, you need to let us know what school you're going to be going to so they can close out the books on some kids. So my point is, you have the luxury of time. You should never feel pressure. A college should never, ever say, well, there's a scholarship on the table. You need to let us know by next week if you're going to take this offer and let us know it's off the table. That should not happen. You have, all families nationwide have up until May 1st to make a decision on the one school they're going to matriculate to or they're going to go to. So that kind of gives you the overview, the timeline of senior year and what to expect when. Again, there's a lot of resources. We're not going to go through everything. One thing I'd like to highlight is right here, factors to consider when choosing a college. So developing a smart plan by having a variety of schools, and this really deals with your son or daughter's abilities, their values, and their interests. So we want to have kind of in the back of your head 3 types or categories of schools when you're working with your student, your son or daughter, putting together a list of schools that they're going to apply to. So in that grouping of schools, we should have some probable schools. That doesn't mean every single school. It could be maybe 1 or 2 probable schools where it means you probably will get in based on your academic profile. So when you're looking at your son or daughter's GPA, the courses they took, if standardized testing is applicable, they are definitely above the mid 50th percentile of the average student at that university or college. So you're feeling very confident they'll be admitted. Not saying they have to go there, it's just in case, just to have a school or 2 as a probable school. A realistic school, your son or daughter's profile matches what a college is looking for. So the ACT, the GPA, ACT, SAT scores, it's a good match. It's a realistic school. These are really good schools to shoot for because the kids that are on those campuses, the freshmen through seniors that have been admitted and are enrolled in that school have a very similar academic profile to your son or daughter. So chances are your son or daughter is going to see really good success at that university or that college because they're going to be surrounded by kids that are similar to them academically. And please note, there are no bad schools. And I'm a firm believer in that. It's finding the right fit for the right student. So one person's dream school might be another person's probable school. You're just worrying about your own child and just trying to find that right fit. So probable, realistic, and then a dream school. And that's on the flip side of probable, where your students, your child's credentials are below what a school is looking for. But never say never. I would never tell a student not to apply to a particular school because you just never know. It's just having a good plan. So having some probables, some realistic, and some dream schools is a good strategy or a suggestion when you're in the process of looking for schools. I put together those 5 myths. I just want to talk about a couple. Kids are really adaptable. So, myth number 1, there's just one perfect college for me. The more work, the more research, the more visiting of schools that you do, kids are going to realize they can find several good places to be. I've never heard of this college, so it can't be any good. I mean, there's over 3,000 colleges nationwide. So if you haven't, a lot of times kids say, I never heard of that school. Please don't use that as major criteria when you're looking to decide to apply to school or not. We can only afford a lower price school. At this point of the game, at this point of the season, if you will, don't exclude a school simply based on price. You certainly have federal financial aid, there's scholarships, there's loans, there's grants, there's things that could significantly reduce the cost of tuition and cost of attendance. That doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but especially in this year with the pandemic and this last year with COVID, I've seen incredible financial aid packages for kids. It's floored me. So I anticipate that continuing this year. So just keep that in mind. And again, we're trying to make this a pleasant experience where you guys, families work together rather than fighting. So in a nutshell, I like to talk about this slide right here. This is what colleges are looking for. So it is as simple as this. In rank order, column number 1, transcripts, is the very first thing that colleges look at. It's the thing that colleges put the most weight to. A high school transcript is the best predictor of college success. So when college admissions officers or counselors are looking at students, this here is what they put the most weight to. So they are certainly looking at students freshman through junior year. They're looking at students current senior year. Of course, there's no grades for senior year classes yet, but we list courses in progress. So they are going to see the courses that your son or daughter has taken from freshman through junior year. They're also going to see what your son or daughter signed up for senior year. They're going to make note of the rigor of their senior year, meaning if your child has had a certain type of curriculum, certain level of course they've taken for the first 3 years, they're expecting to probably see the same level of rigor during senior year. They're looking at overall level of difficulty, grades in core courses, and of course, cumulative GPA. Okay, so that is the best predictor of success. The next column, number 2, is standardized testing. And we'll talk in just a moment about the changing landscape of testing. But in a normal, I should say pre-COVID, this would have been the second thing that colleges look at. So the transcript measures your son or daughter among their peers within the 4 walls of Buffalo Grove High School. And then a standardized test measures your son or daughter with every other senior across the country. So local focus, bigger picture. And then column number 3 is non-academics. Colleges do look at this stuff. So if they ask it, they are valuing it and they will look at it. They will never ask for a letter of recommendation or activities or an essay unnecessarily. So if they're asking for a personal statement or an essay, they are going to read it. If they're asking for letters of recommendation from a teacher or a counselor, they value it and they will be reading it, and that will be part of the application decision. But please note, it goes in this order of, from the most looked at to the least looked at. But nonetheless, they do take into account these things. Activities, they're looking at what your son or daughter has done in high school, whether it be a part-time job, whether it be at clubs, athletics, club sports outside of school. It's not the specific activity, but rather what they're doing outside of the classroom, whatever that is. Some colleges may ask for an interview, and then adhering to deadline dates. If there is a deadline date, please, 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 please make sure your child adheres to that deadline date. Before I get to the next admission decisions, I just want to show you some types of admission decisions. I'm showing you this because as you dive into this and you start looking and you start going into this process, there's going to be some terminology that you're going to want to know. And it really was helpful if you understand and know what the definitions of these terms are. So we're all on the same page and everybody has an understanding. But before we go into it, I just want to make note that all deadline dates are firm in the world of college admissions, college applications. So I just want to make sure we hit that home really, really heavy last week with your kids when we met with them. But a November 1 deadline is a firm November 1 deadline. It's not, oh, well, you can get it in on November 2nd. It's okay. We'll let it slide. It doesn't work that way. So if there's a posted deadline date, it needs to be received on or before that date, period. So that's one thing you can help with your kids and that helping stay organized. Decisions, early decision. I just want to draw your attention to this one. This is a type of admission policy where it's a binding agreement, which means if a student, and I wouldn't take this lightly, this is a big family decision. I wouldn't encourage it for all students at all. If you have any questions I'd like to talk about, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about this. But early decision is a binding agreement. In short, a student applies to the early decision. They apply, they check the box, I'm applying early decision. They get their, usually there's a November 1 deadline date. They get their application in early. And then what the college promises to do is that they're going to look at your son or daughter's application, make a decision, and let them know of the decision before winter break, usually the second week of December. The catch is if a student is admitted to that university through the early decision program or plan, then they are bound to go to that university. That student has to withdraw all other applications they've submitted, and that's the school that you're going to. Students can only apply to one school early decision, and it's a big decision early on in the process. Every other decision, it's not binding. So this is a unique one. Early action is simply early action is simply getting your application in on or before the first deadline date. My example with early action is University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, our flagship state school. They have a November 1st deadline, early action or priority deadline date. And what they're saying is, student, if you get your application in on or before this priority deadline date or early action date, we promise to review your application, just like early decision, look at your application first and make a decision on you. And you can choose to accept or not to accept. And then they go to the second round. And then the absolute deadline date for U of I is January 1st or January 15th. So kids can apply after that date, but not a lot of kids get admitted by applying after that early action date. So if a school has an early deadline date, please make sure you adhere to that. That's definitely give you some advantage for admission. And then you guys can look at the other ones, rolling admission, open admission, regular, and so on. A wait list. If your son or daughter has been put on a wait list, that means they haven't denied your child, but they haven't accepted your child. And what they're saying is, if, and that's a big if there happens to be room becomes available, we will go to the wait list and we'll go down the line and reach out to you to see if you want a spot at this university. For all practical, just for planning sake, don't bank on getting taken off the wait list. In some instances, colleges have thousands of kids on a wait list. Ethically, it's probably not the right thing to do, but nonetheless, if your student's on a wait list, just don't bank on that school for them attending and go to plan B. If you do get called, it's a bonus, but don't bank on that. Okay, standardized testing. I put this here I put this together myself. I think a lot of times when people are talking and parents are talking and you're meeting with college representatives, they toss out, we're a selective school, or we're a traditional, we're a very selective. This just puts some numbers to the category of schools that they are classified as. So this gives you ACT range, SAT ranges in relation to these definitions. And I know most of our Illinois public schools, probably with the exception of one, fall within the liberal to traditional categories. So now, with what the pandemic created in the world of testing. So not last year, but the year before, when schools across the country closed down in March, test centers also closed down. And if you recall, we were not able to administer the SAT, the in-school SAT to students, and as well as test centers that closed down as well. Therefore, kids, by victim of circumstance, were not able to take an ACT or an SAT. Colleges knew this, colleges understood this, so they came up with a strategy, they came up with a plan, and they came up with some types of policies, which we're going to talk about here. So the first one, some colleges said, you know what, we're done with testing, and we are going, it's called test blind, where they do not consider a test score at all. And before I continue on, you'll know every school on their website will list the type of policy, the type of testing option they have. So it will not be a secret. You will for sure will know and be able to find what kind of testing policy each school has. It's not hidden at all. And in fact, right here, you can click, this is a website, it links you to a site called fairtest.org. And this is it's an organization that puts together a list of schools, and it defines what kind of policy each school has. So with the school specific website and this site, you'll know what kind of policy they have. Any event, test blind means colleges aren't looking at scores. So they are not looking at this column here at all. They have X'd it out, and they are simply looking at transcripts and non-academics. Even if a student sends their score, they're not looking at. They're blind. They're test blind. By far, the absolute most popular one is a thing called test optional. So it's your choice to send a score. It's your student's choice to send a score or not send a score. So the college is saying, student, family, you have a choice to send it or not to send it. So the next question is, well, what do I do? So in fact, the data, it's so fresh. We don't even have data from this past application cycle to see the percentage of kids that sent a test score that got admitted to the percentage of kids that didn't send a score that got admitted. But I have been diligent in talking with admission reps since this occurred. And it's this, every college is saying that there is no advantage for sending scores. So with that being said, my suggestion or a thought is, when you're online and you're looking at the school's credentials and you're looking at what the mid 50th percentile student looks like and what the mid 50th percentile ACT or SAT score is, and then you look at your son or daughter's test and if it's at the mid 50th percentile or higher, it's not a bad idea to send. There's no disadvantage for sending it. If you're on the flip side, if your son or daughter is at the mid 50th percentile or below, you may not want to send it. It's up to you. It's your choice. But colleges are saying that if a student does not send a score, we will still evaluate that student with looking at their transcript and looking at non-academics in the same light as a student who sent transcripts, test scores, and non-academics. Schools that have done this, they signed up for a 2-year pilot. So when we shut down schools and they developed this policy, they said they're going to do test optional through the application cycle your kids are going through right now. So that's what test optional means. Test flexible, they're saying they prefer a score, but they'll make an exception because of the pandemic, because of circumstances. But they're saying we still kind of would like to see the test. And then some schools, a lot of the Ivies, yeah, they're saying no change in policy. They say, we understand, unfortunate, but we'd still like to see a test. But this by far is the most popular option for submitting or not submitting standardized testing for this application season. We have the college rep schedule, which was the same as the main page, which is the same as each Thursday email you'll get from us. Continuing on with the college searching, Naviance College Board has a college search called Bright Future, Big Futures. I included a few virtual college campus visits because of, the ability or maybe inability to get out to visit some schools. So you can check these out as well. Still, by far, the absolute best way to learn about a school is visiting a campus. Last spring as juniors, this summer, and well into this fall. So we're still in the going and visiting a campus is a really good thing. As a family, on an official visit, meaning you call the admissions, you make an appointment, you meet with a person, you get a tour from a student ambassador. It just gives you a good taste, a good feel for the campus itself. So there's just some resources here, suggestions, some organizers, some questions to ask. So continuing visit, we have upcoming institute days that you could take, visit a college while kids are on campus and you're not missing high school, but you can visit a school during the week. A lot of schools have Saturday campus visits if that works best in your schedule. So as you're applying, you can certainly continue to visit campuses well into November, December, if you will. We kind of talked about the college fair that was on our calendar we talked about. So while there are no minimums or maximums on the number of schools you can apply to, a list of 5 to 8 schools will give some great choice. This information in combination of having probable, realistic, and dream schools is some good sound advice. And like I said, the world of college admissions, everything is gray. So that does not mean you have to apply to 5, 6, 7, or 8 schools. Your son or daughter can apply to 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, up 20, however many they want to. I think our record was probably 20, 27, 28 schools that a student applied to, which is a lot. The suggestion of 5 to 8 schools is if a student applies to this many schools, having 1 or 2 realistic, 1 or 2 probable, and 1 or 2 dream, they will have a lot of good choices. 5 to 8 schools is not overwhelming. It takes time, obviously, but it's not as time consuming as filling out 15 college applications. It's manageable, and kids will have they'll have a lot of good choice. It's encouraged that kids apply to more than just 1 school or more than 1 or 2 schools, not even worrying that they're not going to get into that school. If they only apply to 1 school now and they go all the way through senior year, they've already made their decision. So they don't have any choice as compared to a student who applied to 7 schools and got into 5 of them. They have a choice of 5 schools later on, closer to May, versus another student who only applied to 1 school. That was their choice, and that's their only choice. Every year we have a few kids that do that, and then all of a sudden they want to start applying to other schools, and they come in March and April and want to apply. They apply, but of course they don't see much success because a lot of schools have already filled their freshman class. So if this is your first child in the family and you're kind of new to the process, this might be a nice goal to shoot for. These are a lot of obvious, statements here, but apply to schools early because the sooner you apply, the sooner you hear back, which provides less stress for your kids. They can enjoy their senior year. The whole process is done with, and they can be a student and enjoy, this, do well in classes, focus on school, and enjoy their senior year. The sooner you apply, when I say this cautiously and with little hesitation, but right now, college admissions offices are open for business. So they are receiving applications. They're dribbling in right now. So colleges might be getting, less than 100 applications a day. Fast forward to October, November, well, they could be receiving thousands of applications a day. So the sooner you apply, they're not going to just sit and wait until that deadline date and say, okay, we're going to let this pile, go up to like however many applications they receive and then start. So they're going to start reviewing them as they come in. So right now there is a better chance, not a guarantee, absolutely not, but it just increases your chances a little bit the sooner you apply. That provides, the sooner you apply, gives you more time to start looking for scholarships. We talked about less stress, meeting most deadlines. So look, one thing that if you could help me with your kids, encourage them, is if there is a November 15th deadline, not to wait to November 14th. And last week, I probably had half a dozen kids ask like, what's the last minute you can turn it in? And it literally is 11:59 on that day before it turns over, and then you've missed the deadline. So if you can, this doesn't mean you have to get it on that date. So sooner the better. So if there's a November 1 deadline and you get it in tomorrow, that is outstanding. Sometimes colleges, fast forwarding to next fall, they give priority registration where kids register for classes. They do it in the order of the applications received during this season right now. So it benefits a student, or it gives an advantage to a student who applies now early in the process. It gives them first dibs at registering for classes versus the student who registered at the very last minute. They're not going to have as much choice as a student who applies early. So these are just a few tips on reasons why to apply early. We talked about this one right now. Don't exclude a school just on cost alone. Senior year courses and course selection and grades count. I'm not trying to stress and panic kids or families, but when you get that admit letter, you're conditionally admitted until the college receives your final 8th semester transcript. So, and that occurs in June or at the end of May. So they're conditionally admitted, which means the college in good faith is expecting your son or a student to keep on doing good stuff and getting good grades and following through on their academics all the way through the end of senior year. So what we don't want is students coming into their counselor at the beginning of second semester saying that I've been accepted to my 3, 4, 5 schools. Now I want to drop this class. I want to drop this class. I want to go from AP down to non-AP. Colleges are going to see that. So just, kind of keep on trucking through the end of senior year. And then these are some, actually, I'd like to show you this too. This is also linked on our main page. And again, I don't want an information overload, but general resources. If you have a student who is thinking about it being a student athlete, this is a link that gives some information on NCAA D1, 2, and 3, NAIA Athletic Conference, and so on. If your son or daughter has been receiving services at Buffalo Grove for special ed or is in a 504, this gives some information in relation to college. If your son or daughter is a first generation college-bound student, we have some specific information, so on and so forth. So if you want, you can, these are specific topic-based information for general information, senior resources, and so on. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. So that was working your plan. That's kind of what we talked with your kid, starting your plan. And then working your plan, we're not going to take a lot of time with this because this is what kids are supposed to do. This is what your students are supposed to be doing. I felt this chart was really important, so we posted it again on the working your plan link. But these are all just organizers, application organizers, checklists, things to help your kids stay organized in the process. And this is the nitty-gritty details we were just going to briefly talk about. So these are talking about the transcript, which is the most important thing to send that colleges look at. This is a very simple chart for Common App and Coalition App. These are very popular applications, platforms. It's a source application that hundreds of colleges subscribe to. So if your students are using these two applications, and this was all mentioned to them last week, they do not need to order a transcript because their counselor will upload their transcript directly into the application. Getting more and more popular is self-reported, which means a college is saying, hey, student, we don't want your transcript, but what we're asking you is to list all the courses that you took since freshman year and the grades you received and report them directly into our application. So that would mean the student does not need to send transcripts to that school either. The school that you would need to send transcripts are all other applications. So if you're applying to Eastern Illinois or to Northern or a school that has a college that has their own application, this is where a student would need to send their transcripts. And we went over this in detail with kids last week. Letters of recommendation. I have a couple teachers that gave some tips and tricks on how to ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation. And we explained this to the students last week on the proper, the etiquette on how to ask a teacher for a letter of rec. College applications, we kind of just broke it down. There's a step-by-step application process, how to find a college app. And like I said, Common App continues to gain in popularity. So we have a lot of links. We have a Common App completion guide. So if you're having a question or troubles, you can go to this first and this might be able to answer your question. If not, then you can definitely give me a call or have your student reach out. Essays, I know a lot of kids, and I'm only bringing this up, I know a lot of kids sometimes stress out and they finish every part of the application. They do everything except for the essay. It's the last thing they do because it's the piece that causes the most stress. So I put together a lot of resources here. So I encourage your kids to take a look at all these resources on how to write an essay, common types of essay prompts. We have a recording from Julie Nelson, who's an admissions counselor for Xavier University, and she gives some really good information on what they're looking for in an essay. So this is worth a look. And again, we talk to your kids about this as well. And again, interviews, we have some good resources if a student needs an interview, and not every college requires an interview, but it's getting more and more popular. And if there is interviews, there's some resources here. Oops, sorry. Finally, paying for your plan. I know that some colleges are extremely expensive, and I'm sure there's been conversations, stress level of like affordability for schools. Breaking it down, scholarships and financial aid. Scholarships are merit-based. It's based on merit, based on a talent and ability, grades, GPA, athletic ability, volunteerism. It has nothing to do with need. On the other hand, financial aid is solely need-based. It's assets and income of the parents, guardians, and students. It's a federal formula. It is a black and white formula, regardless of grades and GPA. So each one of these is its own entity. I do want to call your attention to financial aid. And this, we're not going to go through it right now because we're going to have a financial aid evening for you with that Mark Anderson, I believe on September 21st. So I don't want to take that away from him. But this site gives a lot of step-by-step information in the filing for the FAFSA. One thing I want to highlight to all parents is started last year, and ironically during the pandemic, the state of Illinois came out with a new graduation requirement, which the students, the state of Illinois is saying we are asking every graduating senior to fill out the FAFSA. So that is a requirement to graduate from Buffalo Grove. If a student, you can either fill out the FAFSA or there is a waiver. So if you're choosing not to fill out the FAFSA and you're not planning on doing the FAFSA, the state they offered a waiver or an opt-out form, which is right here. So beginning in October, we're going to start working with families on fulfilling that graduation requirement. The only thing that I ask is if you know now that you were not for sure not filling out the FAFSA, if you could just fill out this waiver and send it into the College Career Center, that'd be much appreciated, because we're going to have to shag every student at the end of the year to see if they've completed a FAFSA or if they've completed the waiver form. So just so you know that. And that's a state thing. It's not a District 214 thing. So every student in the state of Illinois needs to do the FAFSA or the waiver. And then this just lists a lot of information on federal financial aid. Certainly don't have enough time to go through that. But what I do want to mention is that we have a lot of resources. So for example, this person works for ISACORE, and this is the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. And this person is a financial aid expert. And she's assigned to Buffalo Grove, and she's assigned actually to District 214 schools. And she's an expert in filling out the financial aid. So what we've done, we've created a lot of options, a lot of FAFSA completion sessions. So you can, if you're feeling you need some assistance with filling out the FAFSA, we have a lot of options, a lot of events, sessions that you can take advantage of to stop into Buffalo Grove or bring, give your student your tax forms, and they can come in and we can have a person sit down one-on-one, side by side, and get some assistance filling out the FAFSA online and be done with the FAFSA within 30-40 minute appointment time. So we have these sessions. We also have an October 6th district event at Wheeling High School, and to be determined time, but November 10th, we have an Elk Grove FAFSA completion event. So as you see, there's a lot of times that we have earmarked for assistance. So if you would like to take advantage of that, you're more than welcome and encouraged. And then this just kind of gives you some step-by-step on how to go about filling out the application. If you are not eligible to fill out the FAFSA, there's the alternative application. And we just put some definition of types of financial aid, types of need-based aid. Really comes in two forms, grants and loans. This explains the different kinds of grants, and this explains the different kinds of loans and federal work study. I am going to be having a session in spring, understanding your award letter. So sometimes what will happen if you fill out the FAFSA, you will get an award letter from the university or college, and it will show you if you received any money. Each college has its own kind of an award letter, and I'm going to hold a session on understanding your award letter. But in lieu of that as well, there's these resources, and these are pretty self-explanatory and gives you an understanding of how to interpret your award letter. And as always, you're more than welcome to give me a call if you have any questions as well. So that concludes our evening. It's 8 o'clock. If you did put a question in the chat, we will address that and send out the answers in the very near future. Hopefully down the road we can do it in person, but thank you for your time. I appreciate you spending an hour with me and learning. Hopefully it was informative and you learned a little bit. Please keep in touch with your students and work together on this. And whenever you have a question, please feel free to reach out through email or a phone call, and we can get your questions answered, and you can keep on moving on through the process. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.